Hi guys, welcome to my channel. In this video you'll see how I've created this cute raccoon illustration. So when I'm deciding which piece to do next, I put a vote up on my Instagram page, and this time it's between this raccoon and this parrot. I did think that the parrot would win because of the beautiful colours, but the raccoon was the most popular, and seeing the outcome, I'm glad I attempted it now. I will probably attempt the parrot one day in the future, just because of those beautiful feathers. If you'd like to vote for the next piece, please add me on Instagram to put in your vote and see the progress photos of my art. I'll put the colours of the pencils in the description below, along with any tools that I've used. And this royalty-free reference photo I got is from Unsplash. If you do attempt a raccoon like this, please let me know in the comments below, or if any of these tips have helped, I would also love to hear in the comments as well. If you like this video, please like and subscribe and check out my other tutorials on my page. But for now, let's get started drawing the raccoon. So to begin with, I've started with the eye on the left hand side, and when drawing an animal like this, I like to start the piece with the eye just because it allows you to get the character of the animal, and it's a good place to start where you can build on from there. I also usually start on the left and then work up the piece and then around to the right, and this will prevent smudging as you go, but you can see that I do use the colour picking sheet to lean on anyway. Paying close attention to the reference photo, I've started by outlining the iris with the dark sepia pencil very lightly. Then when I'm happy with the shape, I'll go in with a firmer pressure. It's important to always go in with light layers because if you make a mistake, it's easy to erase light lines rather than darker lines. And once the shape is in, I'll go into the highlight of the eye with a white waxy pencil. And in this case, I've used the Holbein Soft White. This will put down a wax resist and make sure that the white highlight stays nice and bright. Then I go in with my light layers of the Sky Blue and Warm Grey 1, making sure to go in small circular motions that will give that smooth glassy look. And then going in with the mid-tones of Caput Morton Violet, Delft Blue, and then finally the dark colours of Walnut Brown and Dark Sepia. Finally, I go into the highlights lightly with the Sky Blue. It's really important throughout this whole piece to go in with light layers for every pencil that you use, especially moving on to the fur around the eye and up towards the ears. When you're looking at fur in real life, you can see that there's a lot of depth and thickness to it. So if you just go in with hard layers and don't put many down, it's going to look sort of flat and not as full. So the reason that we go in with lighter layers is to build up the texture underneath the fur to make it more realistic. So moving up towards the top of the head and around the ears, you need to make sure that you're paying attention to your reference photo to see which way the fur is moving around the animal. So you can see around the left-hand eye, on the left-hand side, it sweeps over to the left, and in the middle of the head, it sort of sweeps up and then to the left and to the right of the head. So when it comes to realism and wanting your pieces to look realistic, it's really important to make sure that you're mimicking the shape of the fur and the color of the fur. So make sure to have your reference photo in front of you at all times so that you can sort of see the way the fur is moving and then also the color changes. So in the reference photo of this raccoon, there was a lot of green in the fur and especially under the mouth and the nose, just because of the reflection from the grass that it's getting from the photo. So I did put a lot of green sort of in the ears and also in the top of the head. So when it comes to doing the cheeks and the whiskers, I did use an embossing tool, and if you're not sure about an embossing tool, you can see more information on one in my leopard tutorial because I talk about that in a little bit more detail. But yeah, before I put the fur and any of the colour in the left and the right side of the cheeks, I put in the white fur marks with the embossing tool to start with. Moving on to the nose, I use the same procedure as I do for when I complete the eyes, which is go in with the dark sepia pencil and lightly outline the shape of the nose that you want. And then I go into the nostrils and into the lightest areas with the Holbein Soft White waxy pencil, just to put down a wax resist to make sure that those little nostrils stay nice and highlighted where we want them. And then I go in with the lighter tones, which is the Warm Grey 1 and the Sky Blue, and then build up the darker colours in the darker areas first, so the Delft blue, Caput Mortem violet, and then also the walnut brown and dark sepia, and then slowly get lighter as we go up towards where the highlight is. Once the nose is in there, then I sort of just connect everything by adding in the darker strip up the top of the nose. Again, starting with really light layers of the warm grey 1 and building up with some B-Star, burnt umber, and then getting up to darker colours such as like the warm grey 1, dark sepia, and adding in some of those blue tones, which is the Cobalt blue greenish, the Delft blue and the sky blue as well. And I even added in some little highlights with the white waxy pencil, the Holbein soft white, and this gives it a little bit of shine and, you know, puts a bit more dimension in the colours. So moving on to one of the hardest parts of this piece, I think, was the little claw there. So the main thing again to do was to go in, I went in with a warm grey 1 and just outlined where all of the claws will be and where all of the individual toe pieces will be, and then I can go in and start getting each section a little bit darker. I also went in with an embossing tool in between the toes, as there are some small white hairs that I wanted to make sure were still there, and then go in with the mid-tones like the Cobalt blue greenish, Caput Mortem violet, light yellow ochre, raw umber, bistre, and then the darker colours of the walnut brown, dark sepia, and dark indigo. It's important to spend time on these sort of sections and make sure you're getting the areas the darkest that you need, and the areas that are light are in there as well, because that will make the shadows appear more realistic for the piece. For the top of the claws, where it has a light shiny section on the top of the nail, I use the Holbein white waxy pencil to put in a wax resist after putting in the warm grey 1 outline. And then after putting in a few of the light tones and mid-tones, I use the white again to blend these colours together and then give that shiny texture. And then again go in with the mid-tones and then again with the white waxy pencil to blend it all together, building up to the darker tones. This is a good process if you're wanting to get a shiny surface like scales or shell or nails. So as usual, once I've finished the piece, I'll leave it overnight and then come back the next day with some fresh eyes to make the final adjustments. So now that I'm nearly finished with this raccoon, I thought I'd just explain a little bit about this Finesse Blender Pen that I used. So you can get these from most art shops, and there is a big brush at the bottom and a smaller sort of pen tip at the other end. So all this is a colour pencil blender, so it will blend all of your colours together. And in this section here where I've got the darker areas, I just wasn't able to get the paper as smooth and black as I wanted to, so I've put a bit of this blender pen down. So to do that, all I've gone ahead, I thought I'd give you a bit of an example. So I've got here a warm grey 1, so I'll do a couple of layers of the warm grey 1, the light yellow ochre, the B-Star, the olive green yellowish, the walnut brown and the dark sepia, and then I'll blend them all together so you can have a look at what the result looks like. So you can see here I've done this little patch here, but you can see that it's quite grainy. It's not very dark, and I really want to get this nice and black because this is the area that I need to get the darkest under here. So what I'm going to do is use the bigger end and just blend that nice and softly. So you only need to go over a couple of times, you don't need to sit there rubbing it in or anything like that. So now that I've blended that, you can see that it's nice thick colour. Nice dark colour, and the tooth of the paper and the white bits aren't showing through anymore. And then what we need to do as well, just with our blender pen, is just to rub off the excess, because if we go in with, go into like a lighter area with the pen again, it will transfer all of the darker colours in. So then all we need to do for the blender pens, you don't need to wait very long for them to dry, but when they are dry you can just go straight back over them with the darker colours and start blending once again to get the darker colours in there. Perfect, so now you can see it's like nice and dark, and that's the process that I've done to get this darker area down here, and pretty much the same colours. I've added in a couple more colours clearly, but those are the main ones that I've done for that section. And definitely the blender pen is very helpful for getting really dark areas, getting rid of the white bits that you get sometimes through the darker areas. This blender pen is great as well if you want to get like a slimy or like a wet finish, like a fish or a frog or things like that. But for now we've finished, so let's take off the tape and have a final look and get him ready for framing.